Out in the Atlantic Ocean, off the west coast of Africa, there is a scattering of 10 small islands you have probably never thought about. It is called Cape Verde, officially Cabo Verde. Barely 500,000 people live there, fewer than you would find in a single mid-sized city, spread across specks of volcanic rock surrounded by open sea. It is the kind of place that shows up on a map almost as an afterthought, a handful of dots a long way from anywhere. And right now, in the summer of 2026, that tiny country is playing at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Does that sentence sound impossible to you? It should. Because when Cape Verde qualified, no fully independent nation that small by land had ever reached a World Cup before. Think about the giants of this sport. Brazil, with 200 million people and 5 stars on their shirt. Germany, Argentina. Now picture a country you could drive across in an afternoon, lining up against them on the same stage. How does a place like that even get there? The honest answer is that, for a very long time, it didn't. Cape Verde had tried to reach the World Cup at every single tournament since 2002. Tried and failed and tried again. 6 times the door stayed shut. They were the kind of team the big nations barely bothered to scout. A footnote in the CAF World Cup qualifiers, a name you penciled in for an easy 3 points. For most of their history, the islands existed at the edges of the football map, the same way they sit at the edge of the ocean. So, what changed? What changed is that they simply refused to stop knocking. The team is nicknamed the Blue Sharks, and the man who built this version of them is a coach known to everyone as Bubista. His full name is Pedro Brito, but in Cape Verde, everyone knows him by that one name. He is Cape Verdean to his core, a former defender for the islands who came back to lead them, and he had one quietly radical idea. He believed a country of 500,000 could organize itself, defend like a wall, strike on the break, and frustrate nations 100 times its size. Plenty of people smiled politely at that. Then, the 7th attempt began, and the smiling stopped. In the qualifying group, Cape Verde were drawn alongside Cameroon, one of the genuine powerhouses of African football, a nation that has graced World Cups for decades. On paper, it was no contest, and early on, it looked that way too, as Cameroon thumped them 4-1. That was supposed to be the end of the fairy tale before it began. So, what did the Islanders do? They went on a run, won game after game, and then beat Cameroon themselves 1-0 at home on their own volcanic rock in the middle of the Atlantic. By the time the final qualifier arrived, the impossible was within reach. On the 13th of October, 2025, Cape Verde walked out at their national stadium needing a win to make history. In front of their own people, they beat Eswatini 3-0, and the whistle that followed changed everything. They had finished top of their group, 4 points clear of Cameroon, and Bubista had become the first man in history to take the islands to a World Cup. A country of barely 500,000 people, a chain of 10 small islands, had qualified for the World Cup for the very first time. Can you imagine what that felt like on those streets that night? An entire nation, small enough to know each other by name, suddenly the smallest fully independent country by land to reach the greatest tournament on earth. And here is the detail that makes it ache. More Cape Verdeans live scattered around the world, far from home, than actually live on the islands themselves. For all of them, in every corner of the globe, that night meant the same thing. Their tiny country had arrived, but qualifying was only the beginning of the story. Surviving there was the real test. When the World Cup draw was made, the football gods did not go easy on them. Cape Verde were placed in Group H alongside Spain, the reigning champions of Europe and winners of the World Cup itself, alongside Uruguay, a 2-time world champion with one of the proudest histories in the sport, and alongside Saudi Arabia. 3 opponents, each one richer, bigger, and more decorated than the islands could ever dream of being. The pundits did the math and wrote Cape Verde off before a ball was even kicked. 3 games, they said, and 3 defeats. Sound familiar? Then the football started, and the script tore itself up. In their very first match in World Cup history, Cape Verde faced Spain, the European champions, a team stacked with global superstars, and the Blue Sharks do not crumble. They defend with everything they have, throw their bodies in front of shots, and their goalkeeper, a man known simply as Vozinha, stands tall again and again, clawing away everything Spain throw at him. Late in the game, they almost win it, a header flashing inches wide of the Spanish goal. When the whistle blows, the scoreboard reads 0-0, a draw, their first ever World Cup match against the champions of Europe, and Cape Verde have taken a point. Do you understand how absurd that is? It was the kind of result that makes the whole world suddenly learn how to spell your country's name. And they were not finished. On the 21st of June, in Miami, Cape Verde met Uruguay, two-time winners of this entire competition. Early on, a Cape Verde player named Pina stepped up to a free kick 34 yards from goal. He struck it through the wall and into the bottom corner, and just like that, Cape Verde had scored the first World Cup goal in their history. 500,000 people, and one of them had just beaten one of the most storied teams on the planet. For a moment, the tiny islands were leading the world champions. Uruguay, stung, struck back twice before halftime and turned the game on its head. At 2-1 down, against the side of that pedigree, this was the moment the fairy tale was supposed to quietly end. But, have you been paying attention to this team? Just after the hour mark, the Uruguayan goalkeeper raced out of his goal and got it horribly wrong, and a Cape Verde substitute named Helio Varela pounced, rolling the ball into the empty net. 2-2. The islands had clawed it back again. In the final minutes, they even went hunting for the win, forcing a save that would have been one of the greatest upsets in the tournament's history. When the whistle went, it was a draw, and Cape Verde had done the unthinkable twice in a single week. 2 games against former champions of the world, 2 draws, 2 points. So here's where the story actually stands. Today, as you watch this, Cape Verde, a nation you could fit inside a single city, are not making up the numbers at the World Cup. They are alive in it. They have 1 group game left against Saudi Arabia, and a result there could carry these 10 islands into the round of 32 on their very first attempt. Stop and let that settle. A country smaller than most cities standing on the edge of the last 32 teams on Earth. Why does a story like this matter so much to so many people who have no connection to those islands at all? Because it is proof that the size of your population does not decide the size of your dreams. Proof that organization, belief, and refusing to quit can drag a place from the very margins of the map into the center of the world's attention. The giants of football spend hundreds of millions chasing this feeling. Cape Verde found it with 500,000 people and a coach who never stopped believing his islands belonged. Whatever happens in that final game, they have already won something money cannot buy. So find the map again. Look out into the Atlantic, off the west coast of Africa, at that scattering of 10 small islands you had never once thought about. Cape Verde, Cabo Verde, the Blue Sharks. Now the whole world is watching them.